For many people who have watched Stephen A. Smith in the past and still do to this day, knows what he's pretty much about. Personality wise, he can be very boastful. He could be loud. He could be downright emotional at times. And he's not always the most articulate or the most correct when it comes to certain instances in sports and really when it comes to race because it's more so one-sided than anything else, and amongst many other factors. But this sit down right here he had on CNN on the panel at the time definitely showed a side of him that's definitely more intelligent and more balanced than how we see him on ESPN, because back then it wasn't as woke, nowhere near as woke as it is today. And so Stephen A definitely had a little more leeway, especially when it comes to him talking about the Democratic Party and how, according to this title right here of this video, that Democrats take blacks for granted. And that is definitely 100 or more so 1000% true. And for many reasons. And Stephen A is going to lay out some of these reasons right here and right now. So I'm going to go ahead and delve into this, give my commentary here and there. So let's get it.
The new 8 o'clock on CNN. Parker Spitzer, weeknights on CNN.
Are you getting ready to say something blasphemous here?
I don't know. I'm just going to answer truthfully like I always do. Nobody's scared.
Here this female reporter said, asking them if you're going to say anything too blasphemous, or what that could be translated to. Hope you don't say nothing too controversial, Stephen A. Right? Because we can't. In other words, that basically means is we can't have a black man speaking too intelligently. We can't have him going too much off the rails, which is what the Democratic Party is definitely known for doing, right? And that's a big part of their memo or their mentality, which is, I know what's best for you, Negro. All right, and you better not go too far off the rails. All right, because we need you on this plantation. All right.
Nobody's scared. Well, I just think, when it comes to the Democratic Party, I think that they've taken the black vote for granted for quite some time. I'm not in a position the way you guys are, in terms of really dissecting policy the way that you do on a daily basis. But at the end of the day, when I see what transpires in our community, how I think the biggest impediment to the growth of our community is the fact that, we don't force people to flatter us. Mm-hmm. We don't sit back and say, you know what, I'm not going to just give my vote to the Democratic Party. I want to stand by as an individual with individual opinions. I want to see what you're offering if you're the Republican Party. I want to see what you're offering if you're the Democratic Party. And I want to gauge what's in my best interest. The black community has not done that for decades, since the days of Barry Goldwater, for crying out loud, or Lyndon B. Johnson. We haven't done.
Facts. Everything he said at this point right here is definitely true, because Democrats have definitely been taking our people, not just our people, but our votes for granted for over 50 years. All right, and that's because of the fact that, for the most part, Democrats give out means of tokenism, right, to our people. Certain tangibles, to make it seem as though they actually care about us, when really they're just, for the most part, they're just making it to where our conditions are more bearable and not so uncomfortable. All right, it's like if you're a patient at a hospital, right? And if you have like an illness like cancer, or anything as serious like it, or pretty much if you have anything wrong with you physically, any sickness or illness, what they'll do is the doctors, people at the hospital, well, for the most part, will give you prescriptions, right? To pretty much know the pain or mask it, but they don't really cure you of the disease, right? Because they keep having you come back because that's how they make money off of you. And that's how Democrats do the exact same with our people. They make it to where they do these things. They keep making money, making money off of us, off of our plight, off of our dysfunction, off of what's going on within our households and communities, because they can't see our people, particularly the black man himself, rise up out of their conditions. Because if and when, and seeing more today, we start to show that we no longer need them, right? For the most part, they're gonna no longer have power over us politically, especially with the next elections onward. And that's definitely a great point that Stephen A. brought up, because we definitely need to force people to say, okay, if you want us to vote, you want to vote, show us what you're doing, show us what you're made of. All right, put all cards on the table. What you're offering. If And of course he's going to explain it here, so I'm gonna let him speak on it.
Theoretically speaking, what I'm saying is when we look at the Democrats and some of the things that they propose, it absolutely sounds marvelous. It sounds like their heart is in the right place or whatever.
All right, so we got a deal here.
But there is such thing as execution. And when you see
Of course, that's definitely a great point too, in regards to how they talk about the things that they claim they want to try to do for us, and it does sound marvelous. It does sound very pleasing to the ear, because Democrats know that our people are, well, for the most part, overly emotional, and that everything that they hear, a lot of things that they hear, sounds good to the ear. It sounds pleasing, right? Whether or not if there's actually any substance to what they're saying, solution wise, is beside the point. Just so long as it sounds good, and then it makes it seem like that, wow, they actually care about us, is enough for them. For Democratic liberal blacks, in particular.
seem inept in executing something, that is a problem. When you look at education, you've contributed money to the education, but I'm from Hollis, Queens, New York City. It's about 20 miles from here. Let me tell you something right now. I went to Thomas Edison High School. It was a very good high school, but there's a lot of high schools that weren't nearly as good. It's rife with African Americans who suffered in the education realm. You look at the job market right now. It's not an accident that the unemployment rate in the African American community is practically double that of the white community. Because why? There are things that haven't been addressed. People need jobs. People need opportunity. But more importantly, you can't always be about, well, we're giving and giving and giving. Really, are you sure that you're doing that? Because if you're throwing money into an empty well, what good is it doing us as a community?
I agree with you.
Absolutely. He definitely said a mouthful right there, education-wise, because that's definitely a very pivotal problem with a lot of our people in regards, particularly the youth, because a lot of these schools, it's definitely something along the lines of anti-intellectualism, to quote Arthur John McWhorter in his book Losing the Race, the self-sabotage of Black America. That, along the lines of victimology and separatism, three huge things. But that's another discussion for another time. But in this case here, one of the reasons why is because within the school system, a lot of our people, a lot of the young men and women are not being taught about who they are, what their true origins are, what their true history is, language, culture, landmass, value, true values and norms, beliefs, the true belief system, all them things, man. That's definitely a big reason, not so much politically or socially, but more so spiritually on that level. Now, regards to more politically. Yes, there's definitely a need for jobs, and but not just that, but there's definitely a need for career advancement to where you become a business owner. You want to know how to start your own business. And that's what I believe is definitely lacking within the black community. Not the fact that there are not no jobs around. There's definitely a lot of jobs, but there's definitely not a whole lot of businesses that used to be around during the time of Black Wall Street. Because our people back then had it correct. They were about the black dollar being in the community for more than 5 minutes. We just didn't spend it willy nilly with everyone else. We kept it in house with each other. That's definitely a big part of that. Job wise. So yes, it's definitely job wise, school, and definitely the big part of it. And this is definitely a huge issue that Democrats, uh, white, black, who do not want to address, which is the destruction of the black family, right? Which is something that definitely Lyndon Baines Johnson, LBJ, definitely had a huge part in regards to like what the Great Society, to where the man got kicked out the home and the woman was given financial assistance to where she can be quote unquote independent. And from that point up to right now, our communities have been, for the most part, to part my French, shitholes that we're seeing for the most part. And it's sad, man. It's a sad, it's a shame.
Almost everything you've said.
Well, that's beautiful.
The results have not been there, but I can tell you the agenda from President Clinton, from President Obama, is the agenda to create that opportunity. The agenda from President Reagan, from President Bush, and then President Bush has been to destroy the creation of that opportunity.
Well,
because that's why I agree with you. Negotiate harder.
Listen. What I'm saying to you is this: I'm certainly not going to sit up here and defend a bunch of conservatives. Obviously, you sit there and you look at some of the things that they propose. You've obviously got to be sensitive to that as an African American. But
of course, okay. Not only do you have to be, sensitive to that as a quote unquote African American, because it's definitely true. And see, that's why it was important to have that two-party system. The Democratic Party and the Republican Party, so that way, if one party goes off, then the other one could kind of reel them back in and say, okay, this is okay. You're going to go a little too far here, so let's see if we can, put our cards on the table and create a perfect balance. All right, definitely the case here, because it's very important to look at the opportunities that these programs, can give to quote unquote black people, people of color, and minorities. And that's definitely something that conservatives shouldn't just stick their noses at or just automatically disapprove of. So yeah, I agree with that from that standpoint.
at the same time, who in God's name told us all that the Republicans are evil and the Democrats are angels? Excuse me, last time.
It's getting real now. Yeah. Now he's definitely asking some really good questions, because you've been hearing it for the longest time, and I'm definitely hearing this more and more today, that the Republican Party are all corrupt, they're all racist, they're all bigots, they're just flat out evil incarnate, right? And that the Democratic Party is on the side of angels, they're just heavenly sent, right? But no, I mean, because I say that because, especially nowadays, man, I know I bring this up a couple of times, but there's so much talk today racially about racism, race relations, and things along that line, to the point where we talk about racism, slavery, white supremacy. We want to put all those burdens on the Republican Party as them being the arbiters of those things. When you look at real history, it shows that Democratic Party were the ones who were responsible for all three of them, right? Democrats they're definitely the party of racism, all right? Because they were, especially during the South, when our people were being used as commodities when they were slaves. And definitely how the South did not want to end slavery because of the fact that that would take away not just from the Union, but their means of making money because slaves back then were a huge commodity, a huge means of making money, right? And in regards, so that's definitely for the slavery part, and definitely for the racism part. What comes to mind is the Ku Klux Klan. Yeah, Democratic Party created those cats, man. They were the ones, right, who were known for terroristic acts of targeting black people, chasing them down to where they lynched them, killed them, where they burned crosses on their front yards and things of that nature, which back then was true racism. All right, that was definitely it back then. And for, all right, so and then for quote unquote white supremacy, they were all about the quote unquote Aryan race. That was all. That was all Democrats, man. And there's definitely more that you can talk about with that, but also some of the main points. Whereas the Republican Party, on the other hand, was definitely that was actually the party for black people before Democratic Party in regards to the New Deal in the 1930s. So it was only from the 1930s to right now that our people supported the Democratic Party wholeheartedly. But before that, Republican Party was definitely founded by black people, and it was definitely for us. And they were the ones who were advocating the end of slavery, right? And that's what they were all about. But that's from one level. But even though, truth be told, neither party really is for our people because of the fact that both sides were created by the elites, the bankers, the Jewish bankers, as a means of giving not just our people, but other people in general, particularly American citizens, the illusion that you have a choice. You can support this party here or this party right here. Look at the pros, look at the cons, which one's best for you, which one's to avoid. But all in all, uh, behind closed doors, they're a lot more. They have a lot more in common with each other than you think. This constant battling, going this constant back and forth between both sides to where they at each other's throats, like we see today. All that's just for show. All right, it's just banter.
Time I check, they're all on Capitol Hill. They're all in the muck and mire together, selling us a bag of worms, and it ain't working. The reality is simply this. We have to reach a point in the African-American community. I'm looking at you. When you were in office, I sat there and I looked at this guy and I said, you know what? He knows what the hell he's talking about.
That's right.
Period. No, I didn't sit there and go like this. Well, he's a Democrat. Let me automatically give him a vote. I want nothing in return. That's the whole.
That's definitely a great point right there because not just regards Democrat, but especially nowadays, when you're seeing conservatives, be it black or white, it makes it hard for people to listen to people like that because just simply because of the term conservative. It's to the point now, if you're conservative, automatically you just want to just ignore this person, write them off altogether. But if they're a liberal or a Democrat, excuse me, oh yeah, let's sit back and listen to what they have to say. All right, because it's assumed that we believe that liberal Democrats are for the benefit and for the well-being of the people. Even though, again, history will show you that that's definitely the opposite, and that conservatives, Republicans for the most part, are definitely more about the people in regards to smaller government, family structure, God first and foremost at the top of at the helm, and basically freedom. Which, by the way, many of our freedoms are being attacked by these same uh, liberal Democratic Party, which is now fully under the control and being taken over basically completely by these by Marxists, communists, and socialists. And, and you could add fascists and wokeism in there too. A lot of these wokeists, these wokies.
Point. The fact is, the African American, you can look at Social Security. Look at something like Social Security. They talk about the average American, the average African American is dying by the age of 55. So that means we're not collecting Social Security, but they're taking money out of our paychecks every week. I'm sorry, how are we benefiting from that? These are legit.
Absolutely. Easy, brother. We're not benefiting from that. And that's a very good point because I've heard I've heard that before too. Like, yeah, the average life expectancy of African Americans, particularly the African American men, is definitely around that age of 55 years old, if not older or less. Right? So, yeah, so I mean, common sense. If you're dying around that age, why would you even need Social Security in the first place? like you said, to keep taking money out of your paychecks, all right, as a means of paying back some of that money in regards to the loan that America has, which Stephen A is going to talk about a little bit later.
Legitimate questions.
Stephen, do you have these conversations with your listeners?
Oh my Lord, I have it with my listeners. I have it with my family, and I'm the Lone Ranger inside my family, and I could care less. I mean,
Hey, nowadays that's pretty much the stand you have to take, man. Whether it be, politically, religiously, racially, economically, any way, any spectrum that they come across, because this is definitely very noticeable within the black community amongst our people, is that when you're a so-called black man or a black woman who's highly intelligent, right, who has sharp critical thinking skills, is not overly emotional, doesn't easily fall for the okey doke, this doesn't react automatically in regards to claims of racism, police brutality, and things of that nature, for the most part, you're going to be not just viewed, but called names like Uncle Tom, Coon, Sellout, Oreo, right? Every name in the book except a child of God. And that's why, for the most part, you can't let it affect you too much because, you know, uh, truth like the truth is not meant for everybody. It's only meant for a few. But the best you can hope for is, if at first you try to tell the truth, particularly to your family, loved ones, close friends, and if they reject it, well, okay, then you just keep going on, and then you never know. Hopefully, some of those very people who doubted you at first, based on what they see, based on what they start to experience, might turn around and then they'll come to you for more knowledge and information about what you're talking about what you read, what you researched, and what you know for a fact. So that's why you should never say never, because you never know what can happen.
just though I really believe, look, I give you an example. We talked about Charlie Rangel last time I was on here. Mm-hmm. I'm not trying to bring up any negativity about Charlie Rangel, but there is a problem when you blindly support a man and you don't take into account the things. And I'm not saying that he hasn't done good, but you have to take into account the totality of what people are doing and not just blindly support folks.
It's as if I only voted for women just.
Of course, absolutely, exactly. You can't just put your trust in any person, man, woman, or any man or woman. All right, man, woman, or third party. You have to do your due diligence and seeing what they're about, what their policies are like. All right, and you can't just you can't just listen to or vote based on what they look like, what their background is, things of that nature.
Just because they're women.
That's not good.
And that's not good.
That's
that
not
makes
good.
No sense.
But I want to.
Bingo. And that's something that Democratic Party is known for doing, to where they put every single person or group within a box and expect everyone within that group to operate the same. which is highly, highly idealistic and for the most part, um, delusional.
To come back to one
Sure.
particular area that we all agree. Let's take education.
Sure.
Because it seems to me that President Obama, Secretary of Education Arnie Duncan, raced to the top, embracing the things from Michelle Rhee's reform agenda to Joel Klein's reform agenda, getting quality teachers into the schools. All those
I
things.
love those ideas.
Okay, and that's
I
a
love those
Democratic
ideas,
agenda.
but I also watched the Democrats just excoriate George W. Bush for No Child Left Behind. And basically, wait a minute, that's it. Yes, they did, and you know they did. The fact is that what he was proposing was alternatives. Now, the progressives, the liberals, are supposed to be a party of choices, but how many choices were they willing to give you? What they were saying is, if you support the charter schools, what that's going to do is take funding and it's going to veer it away from the public sector into the chartered sector. That may not necessarily be good, but they didn't give the African American community an opportunity to make that decision. They tried to make it for us. That's a problem.
When I was governor.
See that? Hey, that's definitely true, man. In regards to the school choice, and that's definitely what we're seeing today, because children within these schools are being targeted left and right in so many different ways, man. Right? Especially what's going on in regards to these school shootings, right? And in regards to how they're being indoctrinated within these certain lifestyles, you know, particularly the LGBTQPXYZ, right? Lifestyle, Satanism, right? Which in those areas in particular, mainstream media doesn't like to too much touch on or address. But also, children are also being targeted in regards to critical race theory, which is becoming more and more quote unquote popular today. All right. But I definitely agree with the notion in regards to how, it's very interesting how these progressives or liberals, or what Thomas Sowell himself called the anointed, claim that they are all about choices, all about the well-being of the people, but really they're not really so much about the well-being of the actual people or of the masses at large. They're about the benefit of their vision, what they deem to be best for everyone, even if and when statistics in real life experiences and data shows completely otherwise. And that's why, for the most part, they'll say those things, but they'll never admit that for the most part, their vision, for the most part, was totally unfounded.
No, I'm just teasing.
We doubled the number of charter schools. New York City, which is a Democratic city, we have an independent
I'm not talking
mayor.
about you.
No. But I'm saying President Obama has done everything to push the agenda for choice in schools, for improving the quality of our teachers.
But you're misconstruing what I'm saying. I'm not here to lambaste the intentions of our president. What I'm talking about is when they asked me the question before I came onto the show about blacks and the African American community and the Democratic Party, it wasn't about Obama, because I truly believe his heart is in the right place. I don't think he always knows the best decisions economically, and God knows the unemployment rate shows that.
Woo, well, you fellas have.
Bingo, ding, ding, ding. Absolutely. And it's very interesting, and I definitely, I'm gonna have to research this more, but I've definitely, seen a peek or two of how during Obama's term, both terms, that the black unemployment rate skyrocketed. But yet, when Donald Trump was president, how people, particularly in mainstream media, completely ignored the fact that during his tenure, black unemployment rate was at an all-time low. And Donald Trump was also the same man who was giving fundings for HBCUs, and how he let people like Jack Johnson out of prison, cutting his prison sentence short, right? And helping him, other rappers as well. So Trump was doing things that you would thought President Obama would do. since he was the first quote unquote black president. But then again, um, I've heard somewhere before too or I've read somewhere that uh, President Obama stated that he's not the president. He's not the president or the black president of the United States of America, but that he's simply the president of the United States of America. And that right there should show you that these presidents, uh, be it Obama, Biden, Trump, and even before them, all the ones before them are all groomed to follow the agendas and the orders of the very people above them, that being the elites, controlled by Satan and the fallen angels who are definitely ruling this earth and have been for a very long time since the fall of Adam and Eve. So, how can you expect any of these elected officials, be it politicians, governors, presidents, whatnot, vice presidents, to be about the needs for the people and what they want to be addressed and want to be fixed when they already have, when they're already being told pretty much what to do, how to do it, and when and when not to do it, basically. So when you try to when you try to do things like that, you're pretty much fighting a losing battle.
I've used up more words in this little segment than I used in about a week.
The man asked me a question. I gave an answer.
Let me just ask you a
Yes.
simple question. Why do you think Republicans have such a hard time attracting African Americans to the Republican Party?
Because their messengers have been god awful. Their messengers have improved somewhat, and dare I say, by talk radio, as sad as that is to say, it's actually true. You can't find a Republican that looks even remotely comfortable to walk into the black communities throughout the United States of America and send and make sure their message resonates.
Why aren't there any African Americans in the Tea Party?
Of course, you can't send no Republican into the black community for the most part because they'll get run out. Because they'll be called again every name in the book for the most part, and that Republican for the most part will not want to deal with them. So it is what it is.
Party.
Well, I do believe there are some African Americans in the Tea Party, and I'm not here to disrespect or insult the Tea Party in any way. They're for lower taxes and less government intervention, and I respect that. And even though we may disagree on some things, I do think that their message resonated. There's a reason Democrats lost 63 seats in the House, 6 in the Senate. It's because there's a group of people out there that look at the fabric of America, and they're saying to themselves, "Why in God's name should we trust you?" That's the thing. That's the message that's getting lost in all this. The more you give to the government, the more you are asking you, the more they are asking you to trust them with your money. Why in God's name would I trust a government that's got $13.8 trillion in debt? Are you kidding?
Exactly. That's the number one question right there. And again, the answer is you definitely should not trust them because, as you stated, now this was back around what 2012 or 2011, around that time period, when he stated that American was like what 13.8 trillion or not trillion, but around like million billion in debt. Jump forward to 2023, it's like almost $70 trillion in debt, brother. All right, and a big reason for that is because of what happened again during that time period when it came to the internet, when they were trying to set up the international banks, right? And how they would have to pretty much get their fundings from the Federal Reserve and the whole history behind that. And how a lot of these, and pretty much from the Federal Reserve and the international bankers came a lot of these different wars, these quote unquote natural disasters, 9/11, things of that nature. All of that pretty much, for the most part, was planned. And I remember a quote from the mother of the Rothschilds, right, where she stated that if her sons, and I'm somewhat paraphrasing, but I think she said if her sons did not want war, there would be no wars. So that's something to think about.
Kidding me? You can't
Steven,
manage your own books. Why should you be managing mine?
I'm with you on all your critiques, but
These are
here's my
common
question for you.
sense things.
Okay, answer this question.
Sure.
Name one Republican presidential candidate you would vote for over Barack Obama.
I don't want to say
he's speechless.
Okay,
He's
I'm
speechless.
not-
I'm never
Question.
speechless. I will say this though. I would strongly consider Mitt Romney for one reason and one reason only. The man knows how to make money.
Absolutely. Because at the end of the day, it's all about making money, especially when it in regards to supporting yourself, your family, buying a house, a car, land mass, and also for traveling. You make sure you have enough money saved up from whether you're working or if you have your own business. You save a nice amount of money to where you can take some time off, travel around the world instead of just being stuck in one state, one country. Broaden your horizons, right? So you can see what the world's really like as opposed to what you've been indoctrinated and programmed to believe in what the world is like. And that's definitely one of the forms of mind control to keep you in a snare, to keep you fearful, doubtful, and always unsure about everything. And that's no way to live, man. That's just existing within the matrix. All right? Just like the movie, the whole trilogy, including the fourth one recently, which is all about just keeping you pretty much a slave, without the chains, but more so mental, right? In regard to mental slavery. All right. But anyway, I thought this was a really good video in regards to Stephen A. Smith and his take on the whole Democratic Party and pretty much how and why they take us for granted. And I couldn't agree with him more. And it just goes to show you that um, this was before Stephen A. became woke the way he is today, because back then it was nowhere near as inflamed as it is today, and you definitely have more leeway when it comes to appearing on other forums and speaking more so your own true mind, which is something that's very, very difficult to do today, almost non-existent, especially within corporate America, ESPN, all these other liberal forums, liberal networks, etc. To the point you have to pretty much read from a script and follow a script all the way through without going too much off the hinges, going too much off to the sound of your own beat. Right? So, so that's why, again, a lot of times people like Stephen A. and others who claim to be liberal or show themselves as liberal on television behind closed doors within their own personal lives, they are definitely a lot more conservative than they would have you believe. So that's why they don't that's why these talking points they make about these liberal talking points that they say, for the most part, again, they don't believe that BS. All right, it's just to sell an image. But anyway, that's a wrap. I'm out.